Hi, this is Shauna, and I want to welcome you to Living in This Space. Real talk, because hey, we're all just living in this space we call life, right? It's messy, it's hard, and sometimes it's the most joyous thing we can experience. I want you, my listener, to have a place where the conversation is real and honest. I hope we can spend this time together, validating, sharing, and experiencing all the feels together with whatever topic is on the agenda for the day. Let's dive in. Hi, and welcome back. I have been doing a lot of thinking lately about friendships. And I think the dynamic of friendship between men and women can be so different. As women, we're typically more emotional beings. So today I'm going to be exploring friendships among women, and we're just going to talk about some of the dynamics of that relationship. I looked up the definition of friendship in Britannica, and it says, a state of enduring affection, esteem, intimacy, and trust between two people. That sounds about right, doesn't it? In all cultures, friendships are important. Relationships are important. And I think that having at least one or two good friends is important to our emotional health. I can't imagine what the isolation would feel like of having no one in your life that you could trust with your feelings. Now, I want to be very careful not to make assumptions here. But some of you may be feeling like, hey, Shauna, I have a significant other that I'm best friends with, and I don't really need an outside friend. Well, I want to validate that. You are perfectly free to feel that way. Those are your feelings and your emotions. And if that's you, I think that's great. I think that's so amazing that you have that relationship with your significant other. But I still want to encourage you to explore the idea of having an outside friend or two. So let's start by looking at 4 types of friends. First, we have an acquaintance. This is someone that you may know, but you haven't shared much of each other's lives together. You're just, kind of casual. And then we have friends. These are usually people that you have a connection or a bond with. And you may know some of the more intimate details of their lives and vice versa. Then there are close friends. These are usually people that you have a deeper trust with. You may share some of the deeper details of your life, and usually, you can count on them if you need them. And then we have best friends, besties, right? These are people or someone, because usually it's just one or two, that you can talk to without fear of judgment. This is someone who you can tell your deepest and darkest secrets to. Someone you can call on and you know they're always going to be there for you. This is a sacred bond type of a friendship. And usually they are very few and far between in our lives. So let's look at what makes a close friend or a best friend. For each of us, that's going to be something completely different probably. Most of us have a set of ideals that will set the standard for what a close or best friend means to us personally. And some of those ideals are usually trust, compassion, honesty, empathy, equality in the relationship, autonomy, admiration, respect, independence, and acceptance, validating, longevity. They're typically, a longer lasting relationship, and being their biggest cheerleaders. And I'm sure as I'm naming some of these off, you've thought of a few more. When I look back on my life personally, I can call to memory only a few true close friends. And I think that's probably normal for most of us. For women, I think friendships can be hard in the big picture sometimes. Most of us have a few good friends and maybe a few close friends, and I hope that you have one or two best friends. If you're lucky enough to have a large friend group as a woman, let me tell you, I admire that because I think it takes some navigating to manage, so to speak, a larger friend group. I mean, you've got a lot going on there usually. So I want to ask, why are friendships important to us? And I'm sure you have some ideas in your own heart why they're important to you. But one of the things is that I know is we're typically wired for connection. So we're highly emotional beings that usually value conversation and connection and time spent together on a much different plane than men are. Connection with other women brings so much value to our lives because we are emotionally driven. With all that said, let's also explore what I personally feel it takes to be a good friend, because we're talking about friendships today, right? So I want to ask you, do you validate your friends' feelings, or are you always in fixer mode? That's a big one. Do you often find yourself in that place of thinking, I want to change your point of view? Honestly, y'all, I have found myself in both places. I tend to be a fixer, so it's been really hard for me over the past, years of my life to recognize when I'm going there. Now, counseling has really opened my eyes to this. We've talked a lot about this in my own personal relationships. So I'm transferring that to my friendships, hopefully. I'm a work in progress, but I'm always trying to be mindful when I'm connecting with someone to listen, validate, and support with encouragement. Now, if you disagree with someone, do you find yourself in that space of wanting to correct or change their mind? Y'all, this is a big one, and I have certainly found myself here many times. I've learned in counseling it is never my place to correct or try to change someone's mind. If I'm asked for my thoughts, then of course the door's been opened for me to share my opinion. But that's it, plain and simple. It's just to share. What my friend does with that is totally up to them. Also, I think good friends should be the best cheerleaders. It really doesn't matter whether I agree with you or not. If you're excited about something that you're doing, getting, or feeling, then as a good, close friend, I should cheer you on, even if I'm not in total agreement or excitement with what you're doing. Now, let me put a disclaimer here. I'm in no way suggesting that you support or agree with unscrupulous or illegal or cruel actions. I think that's just plain common sense, and I really don't think y'all need to know that, but I thought I'd throw it in there. But validating my friends is so important. Remember earlier when I talked about those ideals that we all have that set the standard for what we're looking for in friendships? Validation is one of them. And I think it's one of the most important things that we can do with our friends is validate their feelings. It feels so good to cheer someone on when they have a dream or a goal. And that comes across to them as validation. It feels good to give it, and it feels good to receive it, doesn't it? It's humanity at its best. I think it's a really good practice also to always look at any relationship with the thought of, what can I give to this relationship? Instead of where we sometimes naturally go, what can I get out of this relationship? Wouldn't we live in a beautiful world if we all practiced this? I have to be honest. I wish I could say I've always practiced that idea of what can I give to you? But sadly, I haven't. And over the years, I know that my own selfishness has caused fractures and pain in relationships and friendships that I've had. I want to add right here that all of these things are equally important to practice with our loved ones and our significant others. So much gets taken for granted in these very personal relationships because we're closer. We feel more, we feel like we have more liberty to say things. So, you've always heard we tend to hurt the people we're closest to. I do think that's really true. And I think it's because we've got this dynamic of feeling more casual in the relationship, more able to just kind of speak our mind. So I want you to be really careful there with your loved ones and remember that those same things that you practice in a friendship are equally important to practice with your loved ones and your family members. What happens when a friendship has run its course? Oh, yes, that sometimes happens, and it's usually painful to accept. Friendships evolve and change, and sometimes those changes affect the whole dynamic of a relationship. I personally think, now I'm a believer, and I personally think that God places people in our lives for a reason. And sometimes that reason is only for a season of our lives. And to me, it's always sad when you feel that pulling away of a relationship. But that doesn't mean you never speak to them again. It just means that your lives have most likely taken a different direction. Or maybe there's been some kind of a shift in that relationship that brought you together initially. So I want to encourage you, if you find yourself there, take that memory of your friendship and cherish it as one of your life's most precious seasons. And know that your friendship doors are always open. All you have to do is walk through and see who's on the other side. So, in wrapping up my thoughts on friendships, I first want to give a shout out to my precious friend Lori, who I've known for over 20 years. She has been such an important part of my life, and I cherish our friendship. And to all the rest of you sweet listeners, I want to encourage you to open your heart to the idea of a close friend if you don't already have one. And if you're fortunate enough to have found a bestie, then cherish them with all your heart and practice some of those ideals that I mentioned earlier. And if you find that you're leaning more to, trying to control things in that relationship, let that go and just practice being open and, leaving your heart open to all those ideals that we talked about. Until next time, keep that friendship door open and your heart open and have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for listening. Don't forget to hit follow wherever you get your podcast. And until next time, I hope you live in your space well, my friends.